Welcome everybody to today's new kind of webinar, our Millennial Marketing Panel. I'm super excited to be coming to you guys with a little bit of a different approach than we've ever taken. So we're going to introduce you to some of our staff today, which we're really excited about, and some other friends of ours. So we're going to do that in just a minute, but thank you first and foremost for joining us. My name is Matt. I'm the founder of Q4Launch. Many of you know my voice from our webinars. This might be the first time you've seen me live, and I may be disappointingly less handsome than you thought. And if that's the case, I apologize. For those of you that have been with us, thank you for coming back. We're excited to have many new people. Today's a record webinar for us. We've had unbelievable registration, so we're excited for that. Maybe you're watching the recording of today's webinar as well. Get in touch with us. We'd love to hear a little bit more about you and your business and what's going on and how we might be able to help you reach this important audience. A little bit of background information on Q4Launch. We started about 10 years ago. My background was in e-commerce, had an e-commerce company for 7 years. Sold that, didn't get rich, but got enough money to start my next company, which was Q4Launch. We're excited to be celebrating our 10th anniversary, and it only took us 10 years to be an overnight success. Fortunately, Inc. magazine has recognized Q4Launch as one of the fastest growing companies in America, which we're super humbled by that recognition, and the fastest growing advertising agency in the entire travel industry that happens to get to serve such a unique niche within our space. And we thank many of you for being on that journey with us over the last 3 years of that measured growth. So we believe the best is yet to come, and we're excited to help many of you find the best years of your business as well. So with that, a little bit about us, a little bit about me. I'm going to introduce you guys to our panelists today, and like I said, some of our employees and some of our friends. So we're actually going to start off here to my immediately left with Ben Aulick. Ben is one of our customer experience managers here at Q4Launch. I'm going to let Ben tell you guys a little bit about himself.
So I'm a 23-year-old recent college graduate, a couple years out, traveled a good amount in my life, and I still want to continue to travel. It's still a big part of who I am, and it made me who I am today and who I continue to be. So I'm excited to answer your questions and anything you may have.
Awesome. Yeah, and we're going to get to many of the questions you guys shared with us in your registration links, as well as answer some live questions for you guys. So. Next to Ben's left, we have Bryson and Emily Weiskel. Emily is one of our senior customer experience managers here. She's actually one of our managers. She's grown up through our ranks. And her husband Bryson are here. Probably two of the people I know that travel the most. So excited to have them on our panel. Let them introduce themselves to you guys.
Hi, I'm Emily. As Matt said, I worked here for just over 2 years now, and I absolutely loved it. And one of the reasons I loved Q4Launch is because it was in the travel industry, and I loved to travel. So one of the things that I love about travel, just experiencing new cultures and seeing America for what it is and how beautiful it is. So it's always fun to go do new things and experience it with Bryson.
I'm Bryson. I also love to travel, so I like to go see new places around the country that we've never gotten to see before. A lot of it is driving distance and trying to see just places that have different areas that we've never been to.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to do as much as possible, and hopefully offer some insights.
If you guys saw the number of PTO requests that come through that Emily submits, you'd have a handle on how much. That's how we picked our panelists, actually. We just looked at our HR software and said, who submits the most PTO requests? But that's one of the core values that we hire for, is people that love to travel. Because when you put a love for travel together with a love for customer experience and what we do, you've got great team members that work for many of you guys. So thank you to you guys. Caroline, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I am Caroline. I'm 24 years old, and I'm probably the only non-American here on this panel. I am from France, born and raised, and moved here to Charleston last year, so about 14 months already. I love to traveled a good bit during my life, and especially in America. I just can't wait to discover more and more of this country. So hopefully I can have some good insights for you guys and answer your questions as best as I can.
Yeah, and Caroline is one of our top writers, and when you know someone is wicked smart, when they can be a top writer in a language that's not their native language. So we're super blessed to have Caroline on our team. Excited she's a part of our panel today. So we're going to start off with kind of a softball question here, but just tell us a little bit about, Ben, I'll start with you. Tell me about the last trip you took and what was your favorite part of it?
The last trip I took was a bachelor party, so that's really fun. My brother got married last year, and it was pretty fun. It was a big group of about 8 people, 8 guys, and we just had a blast. It was super fun.
Where'd you go?
Just to Columbia, South Carolina. It's
All right.
not the best, area, but it was fun. It just was the company was better than the place itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Where did you stay when you went to Columbia?
We actually stayed with a friend of his.
Okay.
So we didn't have to look out of the scope. We would have probably, if we were not staying with a friend, we would have stayed in probably a vacation rental type space. That would have enough for everybody, and everyone would have their own area to do things.
Yeah, awesome, cool. Emily and Bryson, same question.
So I think the last trip we took was actually to the Biltmore. It was in January, and we had so much fun. It was kind of like a couples trip that we haven't taken in like a very long time, I thought, right?
Yeah, no, it was a good trip. It was nice. We just stayed on the estate and hung out there for a couple days and enjoyed the 0-degree weather.
Yeah.
I think I know when that trip was taking place then, actually, based on what you said, 0 degrees. It's not 0 degrees in Asheville, North Carolina very often.
No, the river was literally frozen over.
Yeah, so that was a romantic getaway trip, I would say, right? That kind of fits into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk a lot about personas with our team. So there's your romantic getaway persona. Ben and Emily going to the Biltmore in Asheville to freeze. There's a lot of romance wrapped around being freezing outside. So lots of stories y'all can tell in your marketing. Caroline, tell us about the last trip you took.
I went to California.
Oh, nice.
That was really nice. We did San Francisco with my boyfriend for a weekend and then headed to Napa for a couple days later. So lots of things to see. It was really nice. It was
beautiful.
Yeah, totally. It actually was close to home, kind of like the vineyards everywhere.
It felt like close to home.
Yes,
I was just
exactly.
California, France, pretty far apart. It might have felt like close to home.
Sunnier over there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. You actually stopped, I think, to see one of our customers while you were there too.
I did, yeah, Churchill Manor, which was gorgeous and just really nice to meet everybody there and get to know them a little better. Definitely added to the trip.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's exciting. So to frame it up for a little bit for you guys, we needed kind of a context to use for our conversation today. So we're going to kind of use the 5 stages of travel for our conversation. If you've been on our webinars before, you hear me talk about the 5 stages of travel all the time. If you haven't, let me give them to you real quick. Dreaming, planning, booking, experiencing, remembering. These are the 5 stages of travel. We talk a lot about them as a team, and I would encourage you to talk to your staff about them as well, because it will help you to develop a common language to use and understand how different marketing strategies are going to be used to reach people at different parts of those 5 unique stages of travel. If you try to market to everybody the same, you're going to fall flat and miss a lot of opportunity. But by understanding where a consumer or a traveler is in those 5 stages of travel, you can tailor very specific strategies. So we're going to use that language a little bit in our conversation today. Hopefully you can adopt that and pick up some of that language with your team as well. So we're going to kind of walk through that. We're going to start off talking a little bit about dreaming. And when you're dreaming about a trip, what's that look like? So you talked to us a little bit about where you just went, but tell us a little bit about maybe somewhere you're dreaming about going in the next year. Anybody want to start that one off?
Sorry, I think we've been wanting to do Europe a lot. We went to Italy with some family about almost 8 years ago now, and been wanting to see the rest of the continent. And obviously that's kind of a big trip, and you don't go over there for a couple days. So I think for the past couple years now, we've been saying one of these days we're going to get away for several weeks and go get out there. And I think now we've been dreaming about it long enough, and now we're getting to the point of, okay, time to actually start getting some stuff booked.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't have much to say. He kind of spoke for us.
Awesome. Anybody else want to chime in with kind of where you're dreaming about going next?
Mine's another international trip. I guess I could do international and domestic. My international dream is to go to Morocco and back to the Mediterranean. I loved that area. I've been to Italy twice, Greece, all that, done all that. And I want to go back again because it's such a great place. And then domestic speaking, I want to go to California. I've never been past the Mississippi. Born and raised in the South, lived in Charleston all my life. I've been to places in America, but not that far west. So I would love to go over there, maybe even Hawaii if I can fit it in, but we'll see.
Awesome, cool. Caroline, you want to jump in on that one?
Yes. For me, I've always dreamt about going to Alaska, because obviously, why not? I don't know if it's going to be immediate or not. It's just still in the dream phase. But more precisely, I think the upcoming trip would be the Smoky Mountains, just for a weekend maybe, so that's more accessible. in the near future. So yeah, definitely looking into that. That's somewhere I really want to go.
Nice. That's beautiful country up there, both Alaska and the Smoky Mountains. And I'm noticing a bear theme. You want to go see the Kodiaks and maybe the black bears?
Exactly.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
I want
Cool.
to get in the nature.
Get in nature, adventure travel. That's awesome. All good stuff. Caroline's also a boulderer, if that's a thing. There might be a better name for it.
Yes.
She boulders.
A climber.
She's a climber. All right, cool. Thank you for helping me clarify. So, so love that. A lot of adventure, I would imagine, up there. So.
Yes, a lot. So that makes it exciting too, because it's not a work trip, but it's kind of like, okay, it's relaxing, but I can also do the things I love and kind of plan around it. So that's exciting.
Cool. So as we think about that, and you're thinking about dreaming, what would you say? And you've all spoke about very specific destinations. What would you say is kind of created that dream within you, or what got you to the place that was the place you wanted to go next?
For me specifically, going to Europe, it's something, like Bryson said, we'd been to Italy and we had the most amazing experience. So I would want to experience a different culture outside of the United States, and kind of see that history behind it and just the natural beauty that's there. I know a lot of times I see these like gorgeous photos that are posted on like Instagram or Facebook, and it just makes me like kind of start thinking about, oh, that would be awesome to kind of see in real life. How about you?
Yeah, I think one of the trips that I took 2 years ago, I went to Utah and went to all the national parks of Zion, Moab, and Arches, and that was one place I'd wanted to go for like the past decade. And I think a lot of it started with like cultural things. So like I saw Indiana Jones, I was like, man, that'd be cool to see. That'd be cool to see like the Red Rocks and all that. And then like just reading random articles and be like, wow. Then started actually like thinking about what it would actually be like. And then it kind of drove that desire to be like, well, now I kind of really want to go. And so that one was fun. That was like one of the trips I was like, okay, I'm doing it now. And me and one of my buddies went out there and just went hiking for 5 days. And that was a pretty cool experience. So I think the cultural part and like just seeing it and be like, wow, I kind of want to do that. So.
It's funny that you mentioned the movies, because for me it's totally this. It's like growing up with movies, just watching White Fang, you see Alaska, and you're like, I want to go too.
Yeah, and those wilderness movies had such a big year in 2017. So that's probably, there's a lot of wilderness travel.
They keep it fresh in my mind, for
Yeah.
sure. Yes.
That's awesome. Ben, what kind of inspires you when you're...
Mine's mostly pictures too. Like, I'm a millennial, so I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, like whatever other social media you want to use. So, I mean, I'm really into like pictures. I have a knack for photography. It's something I really enjoy, and so that's part of the reason why I've chosen the places I want to go. But I could speak specifically to the Mediterranean. Is like my very serious girlfriend, she's Greek and Lebanese, and so going back to her roots and reconnecting maybe with the family over there and seeing the culture through her eyes and connecting it that way is just would be such a beautiful opportunity to get to see that and see her light up experiencing her ancestry when they came over here only 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So speaking to that, like that's something I'm really excited about.
That's awesome. Well, we're only about 15 minutes in. We recorded the promo videos before we started, actually, which many of you may have seen. That may be why you signed up. But I'm noticing a couple trends. One, adventure travel. Two, photography is huge, which we just wrote a recent blog about how to choose a great photographer. And three, there's a lot of talk about culture. So as you guys are thinking about positioning your properties, positioning your destination, positioning your branding, one of the things we do to help our customers do that is try to position culture within their storytelling. And storytelling is a big part of that. That's what's going to tie into help people discover that culture. If you're just, here's my property, here's my vacation rental, here's my hotel, you're missing a big part of culture. You're just showing a product as opposed to building an experience. So I want to kind of take some moments as we move along to pause and reflect on some of those thoughts, those themes that are coming out from our conversation, so you guys can take some notes and think about how do you apply that into what you're doing. So awesome. So I'm going to kind of slide in here. Actually, I'm going to tell a story on myself. You guys talked about what's inspiring you to travel. One of my next trips is actually to run a marathon in Denver, Colorado. Terrible idea when you live at sea level in Charleston. But I'm doing that because a friend of mine registered and tagged me when he registered and said, hey, come run this marathon with me. So that's social media working to get me to travel to Denver and run this marathon with him. And then while I was out there, while I was preparing for that, one of our customers actually that I'm friends with on Facebook was in Sedona, Arizona. and posting pictures of her trip, and she's probably watching today's webinar and doesn't even know it because I haven't texted her yet, but she inspired me to then take my family from Denver on to Sedona, and we're going to spend about 5 days checking out the Red Rock. So actually that memory jogged for me when Bryson shared what he shared about his trip out there. But social media, I think, plays such a huge role in inspiring people to travel, but we often get questions about ROI on social media. None of the ROI of any of the trips that we've all just talked about taking that are heavily inspired by social media is going to be trackable, because my trip to Sedona is not going to be trackable. You're probably going to see that as a Google organic booking for the hotel or the vacation we end up booking at, whichever we end up landing on. But it's not going to show social media as the source for that booking when it's originally the source that inspired the trip. And I think that's probably true for many of you guys. So one of the big takeaways there is sometimes ROI is hard to measure. There are so many touch points that make a trip happen and that lead a consumer or a traveler to book with you. You can't always get to that just one touch point. So we try to get there best we can as marketers, but there's a lot going on in marketing that makes a consumer make the decision they're going to make. So important takeaway for you guys there as well. So let's talk a little bit about, and we're going to shift a little bit from dreaming now into our planning stage. So we talked about a trip that we're all dreaming about a little bit. As you're making that shift, Bryson talked about that shift kind of happening for you guys right now. What does that look like? As you're shifting from that dreaming to the planning stage, talk us through your process as a consumer. Like, what are you doing? What's your behavior like? Where are you looking for information? Not to lead into that question too much so I don't lead your answer, but talk to us about that process. Emily, if you guys want to start off.
Yeah, so honestly, Bryson does a lot of the planning for a trip. I'm just kind of riding his coattails, so I'll let him speak.
So I'm the neurotic planner. My issue is, like, if we're going to spend money and spend time to go somewhere, like, we need to get the most out of it. So I want to make sure that we make the most of our time. And I think the biggest part of that is being knowledgeable about where we're going, which is kind of difficult because you're going to, ideally, a place that you've never been before. So my biggest thing is just doing random research and just looking on Google and saying, okay, best places to eat and wherever we're thinking about going, or best things to do, and then searching through reviews. I try to get like the insight of other people who've done it before, because that's usually, I feel like, getting to know somebody who's done what I want to do. But I think the research part of it and just spending hours on Google. Sometimes for shorter trips, I've spent more time Googling than I've actually spent on the trip. Yeah, I think just being as knowledgeable as possible about like all the things to do in a new place.
Yeah. I think just to bounce off that, one of the things that he'll give me like a list of 3 or 4 things of like either hotels or restaurants or really anything that we're trying to do, and I pretty much like narrow it down or just say like, I really want to do this, I really want to stay here. And one thing that always makes me book or like want to do that are photos, and also on the website if it has all the proper information so I don't have to call. That was like one thing that's super important to me. I just want to know, and if I don't know, I click right off because I'm like, this is wasting my time. So I think that's super important too.
Yeah, the user experience, especially if you're spending hours, like you want it to be easy to get around a site.
Yeah.
So when it's like
and
easy navigable, I think it makes it.
Yeah, and you just want all the proper information. So like, I want to know if like there's a hairdryer in the bathroom, so if I have to pack it or not, just like stuff like that. That's a lot of sites actually don't have that basic information on there. So.
Ben or Caroline, you want to jump in with an answer to that question?
Yeah, I'm really bad at planning myself. I'm more like, what is there to do in, let's say, California? I'm thinking of like Northern California. So I'm like, things to do in Northern California, and I'll look and I'll try to find some idea of like where I want to go, and then I'll look at maps, like how far is this from each place, and try to connect it in my head. And then I'm like, well, that doesn't, I don't know. I'm just really random when it comes to searching. I'm kind of like Bryson. I spend hours Googling something that I probably could find on one website if I just looked hard enough. And I'm really just not good at that either. But I also do the same thing. When I look at hotels or places to stay, I look at the pictures and I'm like, does it actually look nice? Like, am I getting what I'm going to pay for? And, if the photos aren't great, then probably not going to be on the site. And also, like, navigating the site. If anything's not laid out and I can't find it, I'm just going to leave. Like, like amenities, like if there's, I'm super into amenities. Like if there's a spa on site or like looks over the cliffs or something like that, because I don't know if California has that. I want to know that information or have a picture somewhere telling me that's what's there. And like as a visual person, that really does help. And I think I'm not speaking just to me as being a visual person. I think a lot of people are that way too. And that helps, again, dreaming and planning is like, I can see myself right there. So, that's kind of how I plan my trip, is that way.
Yeah, so you've both talked about spending hours Googling, which is great news for Google. If anybody thought Google was struggling, clearly they're not. So you both talked about spending hours Googling. So you think about that, you think about the trip planning process. You've also talked about the importance of photography. But when you get to a website, you're looking at the beautiful photos, but how would you feel about like the content of that site? I mean, you're clearly looking for information. You're in search of information. You're in search of more than just a photo. It's like, how does the content of that site impact your decision to book or not book?
I think one of the, like as a millennial, and I think a lot of the younger generations, everything's like tiny tidbits of information. So like if you see a page with like 1,000 words on it, the odds of you reading after word 5 is minimal. So I think being able to get the information quickly, like, okay, got it, like this is, they're saying, okay, this is what you can do here, this is what the amenities we offer, or whatever. So I think being like to the point about that stuff while still providing still providing something to draw you in to want to be there. But I think getting the point across quickly I think that's like the outcome of like Facebook. You just scroll through, it's a new sentence every, getting to the point.
Yeah, I love bullets or like lists on like things to do page. I'm like, oh, this is so nice. It's just easy, it's clear, it's precise. And then usually I'll go back to that page as I'm scrolling through or clicking through a website and more or less read it. But the first, like if I land on a page, the first thing I do is I just want a list, and then I'll eventually come back and then start reading everything else. Like, I'm like, it's there for a reason. I should probably read it.
Yeah, for me it's the same. It's clarity and lots of images, because you want to picture yourself there. You want to know what kind of experience you're going to have and what kind of atmosphere you're going to step into. I know for myself and my friends, that's really, it's not so much about, okay, what are we going to find there, but it's more, okay, is that in touch with the kind of experience we want to have when we're there? Because you kind of go on a trip having an idea of the vibe of the trip. It's going to be, either you're like going into the wild and you want to like this like bear experience, or you want something a little trendy, you're going into a city, and everybody's different, so it might not be for everybody. But definitely if you find a website, and especially if you're looking, you're obviously using words that you know what you want, so you're probably going to end up on things that you're looking for. Just having a website that shows you, okay, like that sells you the experience, that really tells you, okay, when you come here, like this is how things are done, this is how you're going to feel like, and having tons of pictures to just like allow yourself to picture the trip already. I know that I'm always looking for more pictures. I will cross like websites as much as I can to get as many pictures, like Instagram, Facebook, just to get as many pictures as I can of the place that I'm going to. I like that.
Awesome. Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
I think for me, if I'm looking at something, I want it to be the best answer for me. So if I'm looking at something for like things to do, and the introduction paragraph like doesn't capture my attention, I'm out. Like if there's no way I can picture myself with the words that are being used, I can't relate to it. And I'm kind of like Emily, like I need a really clear list. Like I'm really ADD, so I'm drinking coffee all the time. Why, you get some coffee beside you right now.
A lot of
calms
coffee
me
at the
down.
launch office.
Yeah, it calms me down, which is really helpful. But no, it's just I'm scattered, so I need those clear things to do, and a list. It doesn't matter the list. I don't care how it's laid out, but I need like headings and things I can look at, and digestible information. I think something else too.
Yeah. One of the things we've tested a lot in the last year, and we're doing a lot now, is kind of a standard practice, but having that page and then using a lot of internal links to go to other pages on our site, which has been working really, really well for us. And it just kind of connected in my mind. I mean, we saw the consumer behavior, it led us to drive the action, but we're hearing it here. Like you land on a page, but then you end up going to multiple pages and looking for more information and looking for more photos and reading this and then digesting that, and then you leave and you go back and it's a long process to make these decisions. They're expensive decisions, so you want to get them right. And there's a lot of touch points happening within your buyer's journey to go from dreaming about going to Alaska to booking that trip to Alaska. So lots happening there. Obviously that journey is a little bit different. You know, a trip to Alaska, trip to Europe, trip to California, all big trips, you know, the weekend getaways. Would you say you're investing more or less time planning kind of those shorter trips? I know you've said some of both, but where would you say your time typically falls?
So we're actually planning a weekend trip right now with a couple friend of ours to Orlando, Florida, and our planning process is honestly not that involved. It's just like we're more going as a group, so we're not that concerned about like romance or luxury or anything really like that. We just want something close to the location that we're going to. And I think our planning process is pretty like easy. We filtered through like we want a certain star hotel and we want it at this price, and we kind of found a few and we're like, this one looks just fine, and we kind of just booked it. Like it wasn't that.
I think the time prepping, at least for me, is usually equatable to the time and money spent. So, like you said, if you're spending a lot of money, you want to make the right decision. So I think the bigger the trip, the more important that decision is or has, versus the weekend trip. It's kind of, and sometimes we'll use last minute trips, like, hey, let's just go someplace. And, you know, so I think the research is proportional to the size of the trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an important insight too, because if the research is proportional to the size of the trip or the size of the outlay, as you guys are thinking about the type of trips that you're selling or the experiences you're selling, think about your point in that. Like, are you a value-oriented product that's $99 a night? You might not need content to draw people in and sell the experience, because it's a lower price point. You just may not need to position yourself the same way. Or are you a luxury product and it's a big decision that people aren't going to make as often? So they need to feel a little bit more invested in their planning process before they're comfortable to make that booking, knowing that it's a totally different booking experience and buying experience than what you'd expect out of a $99 a night hotel. So just some different ways to think about that based on where you're positioned and understanding what applies to you, because we're going to share a lot of ideas and things. Not all of it's going to apply to everybody, so you're going to have to unpack some of it and figure out how to make it work for you. As we want to kind of look ahead at the next year as well and talk about how often we travel. So if you guys can just kind of quickly say, in the next year, ballpark, I know you may not have it all planned out, but how many trips do you think you're going to take? Tell us that. Tell us a little bit about the duration of those trips, and then kind of who do you think is going to go with you on those trips? Are those mostly individual trips, going by yourself, going as a couple, going with a group of friends, going with family? I know it's like 8 questions packed into one, but if you can kind of answer them all for us.
Yeah, I think so. We're in that state. So, or usually what we do at the beginning of the year, we'll try to get a ballpark for the vacations we plan to take. So normally our goal is, for the past couple of years, we'll take one big vacation that's like week plus. And that, you know, last year we went to an island in the Caribbean, this year maybe Europe. And then we'll try to put in like at least once a quarter, like a weekend trip or like a 3-day trip. I think we also try to hit at least one friend's trip. And then at least one friend's trip, and then everything else is usually with us. And then sometimes a family trip works out. Our family's kind of spread up and along the East Coast, so we can do one trip with them. Sometimes we'll just go see them, or sometimes we'll go somewhere. Like last year, we went to the Outer Banks, so we met some of our family from Virginia. We drove up with us and her mom, and so that was really fun. So I think usually we're in the, say, 4 to 6 trips range. That's a yearly average, I would say.
I think right now we actually have like 6 trips planned, to be honest, for the
Just
year.
about.
Yeah.
Awesome. So 6 trips in the next year, so about every 2 months. Awesome. Caroline, you want to? And no pressure. You don't have to beat 6. This isn't a competition.
No worries there.
Well, I have 2 different kinds of trips for myself. So usually you have the big trips, you know, that you're going to like, you know, make sure you have enough days to go somewhere. And what I mean by big trip is, you know, you have to fly somewhere. You know, you have to, like, there's got to be something. But I also do weekend trips very often, meaning it's where for me to be in town during the weekend, especially in the fall and the winter, because, you know, you mentioned it earlier, I'm a climber, so every weekend with the whole crew, we usually drive somewhere in North Carolina or Georgia or Tennessee, and we just climb. So for the past 3 months, I've probably been in town for like 2 weekends.
Wow.
So there's definitely this. So weekend trips, I don't think I can count them because they're also kind of like last minute, not last minute 2 days before, but within a week or 2 weeks before, gathering people and be like, okay, let's do something this weekend, and just kind of finding something in the moment. The big trips, one is obviously going back home to see my family, so that's that takes already some preparation, and then I try to do one or two others that are just for my own pleasure, just going somewhere that I want to go to, because I obviously don't want to spend time on just going home with my vacation. So yeah, I would say 2 to 3 big trips and then numerous weekend getaways.
Cool. Yeah, you hit on something really important there, and that's a huge trend we're seeing in travel right now, and that's the last-minute millennial trip. So like on Wednesday saying, hey, we don't have anything going on this weekend, where do you guys want to go? So I think there's a huge opportunity there. Caroline was not baited at all to say that and just fed right into some of the research that we're seeing supporting that as well. So lots going on there, lots of opportunities there to find different ways to reach that last-minute traveler. Ben, what about you?
I'd say probably max like 3. One really big trip. My family goes to the same resort every year, a couple hours away, and we'll go there every year for the whole week. So that's kind of our thing. And then
Nice.
I don't have to plan anything for that. I just have to go. I don't have to do anything, which is great. And everything's at the resort, so I don't really ever have to feel the pressure to leave. But the other 2 are more my girlfriend and I, romantic getaway kind of thing. One's to New Orleans, and hopefully one's to California and the West Coast. But yes, it's just doing the planning, which is a really terrible idea. I'm really bad at looking at flights and I'm good at looking at hotels, not good at flights and all the other nitty-gritty information. It's just not me. But trying to plan that out. Some of that's a surprise, so hopefully you won't say anything.
Hopefully she's not watching. But a couple trends there. One, I would say planning is important. We spend a lot of time doing it. But anything you guys can do to help your travelers do less planning, it sounds like it's going to be appreciated. So that's going to be key as we're looking at that and figuring that out. Trying to packages, specials, things like that, make it easy on people to do their planning. I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about how you're making that booking choice. We talked a little bit about amenities, but amenities, you also talked about websites a little bit, but when you're honing in on that where am I going to stay decision, you're kind of talk to us a little bit about how many places are you typically looking at, and then what's kind of tipping you over that edge of like, no, this is my place, like this is where I'm going to go.
So I think for us, what I like to do, I always like to go to like an OTA site like a Booking.com or Expedia, because I can filter through a whole bunch of hotels by location, by star, and by price, and just depends on kind of our trip and what we're kind of looking for. And then from there, I always narrow it down to like 3 or 4 hotels. Then I always go to the hotel website. And then from the hotel website, that's where I've kind of see the photos and the information that I'm kind of looking for, and also see what else I want to do there. So I do consider location with my hotel also.
Yeah, I think that's one of the primary, or not, it's one of the important things. I think, like one time we took a trip to Savannah, and we ended up staying in a pretty small hotel, but it was right in the middle. I think it was on like River Street, and you were right in the middle of it. And I felt it was just nice. You walked out and you were kind of just walking around your hotel. You didn't have to go anywhere else. Like you were already there. And there was another trip I think we took to like Jacksonville. We ended up staying right outside the city just because we didn't know. It was a last minute thing, whatever. And it was a completely different vibe. So I think the location, if you're central to whatever like the draw is to that area, that makes a lot of difference. I think that's one of the driving factors for us to make a decision on a place to stay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ben, Caroline, what are those things for you guys as you're trying to narrow that list down? Maybe let's kind of take the location out of the pictures. We talked about that one already, but let's say everybody's in an equivalent location for convenience sake, but what are the other things that would tip you to make a booking with one property versus another?
For me, well, going back to the whole experience thing, just how easy they're gonna make my trip. So, you're going somewhere that you don't know, and, no matter how much you research the place, there's so many things you don't know, like the daily life, how, you get to one place to another. So just if things are really clear and they really try to make it easy for you, like what you can do there, what they can provide, and just free, like stress-free. I think for me, as the easier it is, the more inclined I am to book with them, because I know that I'm not necessarily going to have to, go through like a big process of like coming in or just like not knowing what to do, or just how comfortable I will feel, in the property to ask around, or how inclined they are to help me out. So I think that plays a big role for me. Just knowing that I'm not gonna have to worry that much. Just plan ahead, and then once I'm there, it's all good to go.
Yeah. I just want to jump off that because you reminded me of something. Yeah, the easiness of that, and that is also communicated through your website. How easy is your website to navigate, and how easy is it to book with you directly? That's a huge factor for me too when I'm like looking at websites, because again, I like my information pretty much popping out at me on a website, and what I want, like, the website to tell me why I need to stay there, as easy as possible. And some websites do it amazingly, and some websites just don't at all. And
yeah, just making it simple, really, because we're pretty autonomous. We don't need to be assisted that much. We we have our devices, smartphones, and we're used to getting around without a lot of help. Like, we can figure it out even if we don't know a place. Just something that is simple, straight to the point, that can just like a platform for us to really explore and enjoy our vacation is pretty much what I'm looking for. And that's what you were saying, that it was like, yep, totally.
Yeah, like it communicates to us why we need to stay with you.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a great segue. We got a ton of questions from you guys about websites, which actually surprised me that you guys were asking specifically so many questions about websites in your questions for our panel. But because of that, I want to talk a little bit about it, and you kind of set us up with a segue there. Interestingly enough, 99% of people who come to your website every day do not book with you. So that's kind of a shocking statistic, but we often focus on the flip side of that, and that's that 1% of people do book with you. And that's an industry average, so it's not, it is what it is. But talk to us a little about being in that 99% of people that decide not to book. Tell me a story about maybe a time, if you can think of one, that you went to a website and you decided not to book because of that website experience, and what was it about that experience that made you say, no, I'm not going to stay here?
I think I'm trying to think what trip it was. The recent trip we took last year, we were at that point, we got these 4 hotels. They all kind of meet all the criteria we're kind of looking for. And I think we ended up deciding on one, but it was kind of just a pain in the butt to go through the booking process. And I think I was like trying to do it on my phone or something, which probably wasn't a great idea. And it was just more difficult than it needed to be. And I was like, I don't know, I can't figure this out. So I put it down and moved on. And when I came back to it, I was like, well, maybe I should look at the other place. And the other place just had a more simple booking platform. And kind of just within like a minute and a half, I was done. It's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm staying here, and that's, it's made it easy. I think it goes back to the easiness and the user friendliness of it. So the easier you can make something, I definitely think get more people to do it.
Yeah.
I've had several experiences like this too, that I'm literally through the booking process, and it's just so complicated that I'm like, well, I don't have time for this. Or, you get to a point, if it's too complicated, you're starting to wonder, like, what's really going on. You get really suspicious. You're like, it's too complicated. I don't know. And you kind of give up, because we're used to, like, fast-paced things. So, same for me. At least 3 or 4 times that happened. So.
We will never pick up a phone and call. Like,
no.
We just won't do it. Like, we're giving up.
No.
It's too hard.
We've decided to book with you, but we won't pick up the phone and call you. We'll move on. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to laugh, but that's true. Like, we hear that from so
true.
many people.
Yeah.
Honestly, we have a ton of millennials that work here, and interviewing people, trying to get them to pick up the phone and call, even for an interview. It's not booking a hotel, it's getting a job. Like, even getting people on that phone is hard. So I imagine many of you are probably seeing less phone calls than you used to, less questions, which means that's got to be answered on your website. Questions that people used to ask you on the phone now have to be answered on your website. And if you're not answering them, you're probably losing a ton of bookings you don't even realize. So that's huge, because we've got to overcome those reasons people don't book, even more so than like focusing on the reasons people do book sometimes. Because, and I think this ties into something we're going to talk about in a minute, assuming we have time, but there's this huge shift of travel happening, or a huge shift in travel spending happening from traditional branded or flagged hotels into independent hotels, B&Bs, vacation rentals. And as people are making that shift, they know what to expect from a Marriott. They know exactly where the front desk is going to be, what they're going to get. They know exactly what to expect. They may not be wowed by it, but they know what to expect. And there's comfort and safety in that. And people will retreat from the unknown every time to comfort and safety. If there's anything, you spoke about that, like questioning, like what's going on here? This is harder than it should be. People will retreat back to a place of safety. So as you're thinking about your website, as you're thinking about your digital presence, you've got to think about what hurdles am I putting in people's way? I've got to make this as easy on these people as a Marriott is. And I've got to think about if a person's booking a vacation rental for the first time, or a bed and breakfast for the first time, or a boutique hotel for the first time, you don't know what to expect. And sometimes it can be a bit scary. So you've got to help them overcome those things, overcome that by clearly communicating expectations, arrival, using great photography to tell your story, selling your experience, your destination, all things we've kind of hit on today, but such a huge thing to focus on that 99% that comes to your website. Your marketing did its job, but your website didn't get them to book with you. One of the things I talk to people about too is just shop yourself. Like look in your own destination. And if you were planning a trip to your own destination, speaking to our customers now, or speaking to the people watching, would you book with you? Like, do you have the best website, the best marketing, the best pictures in your destination? And if the answer is no, then you probably need to do something about it, because I guarantee you're losing bookings, as our panelists talked about today, because your competitor may be beating you. They might have a better website, they might have better marketing, they might have better photography. It's all of those things coming together that make a consumer, millennial or not, decide to make a booking. So I wanted to touch base on that. I don't know if anybody wants to jump off of that and talk about that at all. But.
I do. It actually sparked a thought in my mind. Us specifically, at least, we would rather stay in a non-branded hotel, such as like a boutique hotel or a B&B or a VR if we go with our family. And sometimes we just end up going with a big chain because we just know it's reliable and we just know what it is. And that's a factor because those boutique hotels, those B&Bs, didn't communicate properly what we were looking for. So it's like those pictures. One of the big things for me is like cleanliness, and I just like I'm very crazy about it, and I love everything like perfect and clean, and that's always something that's super nervous to me. So if you have like dingy photos or like photos that I'm like probably that's gross, I'm like automatically not booking with you. So great, I know we keep saying this, but great photography is like one of the best things you can do to communicate to your customer like we are better and we're just as clean as a big chain hotel.
Yeah, and minimalism is, not if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but just keeping it simple, like minimalist. Like whenever I'm on a website and I see a lot of like, just even the decoration or just the way it's presented, if it doesn't, sparkle in front of me, like it's just confusing, and I'm just like, oh, because the thing is, the good thing about those chain hotels, it's like it's your last option. It's like, well, if I can't really find a place that I'm gonna feel like I'll be comfortable in, I'm just gonna go there because it's just like stress-free again. It's just, well, it's kind of like the last option. But if you can show me that, this is what I'm going to buy into, and that's the atmosphere I'm gonna get into, and just keeping it simple, don't make it complicated. Even like the photography, just keep like neat, clean pictures, a website that has a lot of white space and not a ton of text, because again, you were saying that before, Bryce, and just like if there's more than like a few sentences, like, well, you're gonna like read in like diagonal, you're not actually gonna spend time, you're just gonna actually look through, and I'm sure you guys do that too. You pretty much know what you're looking for when you're looking at all those websites, because you probably have tabs on your computer open with 5 other competitors, so you're comparing those things. So the simplest it can be, without like with giving the same information, I think that makes a huge difference. Like I'm always gonna go, even if it's not this, the same style, and something that is a little different that I usually go for. If it's simple, if it gives me the information I need, and it like, again, photography shows me exactly every little details, or like, even a picture of like a coffee like on a table. That's just, that sells you an experience. Like it's not so much about the product, but more about, here's the product that will give you the experience you desire. And I think for me, that's the big thing.
Yeah. I think my next trip, reluctantly on my end, is going to New Orleans and having to fly. But speaking on what Caroline said about minimalism, like there's this place I can think of in my head. I'm not gonna say the name of the hotel because I don't remember it. But it blended like this historical character, which is something I look for in a place. I really don't like big chain hotels. I mean, I'm from Charleston and the area, and there's been a recent growth in like boutique hotels and bed and breakfast, but you go more toward the traditional route of big name hotels, and I just don't like that. There's no character. You know what you're getting. It's not unique, and like I just don't like that experience. So I will go out of my way to look at a boutique hotel, and that's where I see myself when I'm traveling and where I'm going to spend. Like if I'm going to go on a vacation, I'm going to spend money on the experience of the hotel that has one, great pictures, like that's a way to get me in, but the amenities that are at the hotel, that's something too, like advertising that front and center and showing that to people, like you have a spa on site, you have whatever thread count sheets, you have a place you suggest to rent a car because I'll be flying to all these places. Like having that information up front, like Emily said, is so easy, and that's going to be the way to do it. And I mean, I know exactly where I'm going to stay when we go to New Orleans, but I had that in my head, and that's one of the reasons why I booked there. But something else too that I thought was really cool was I never landed on the site before, first time there, and my first time coming up, it gave me a discount off. And this place is a boutique hotel, so it's well over $400 a night. And getting a % off, and I was like, wow, I can use this for something else there too in the area at the inn, using it again so I can enhance my experience even more. So I think even that little touch of 10-15% off, it's not that big of a difference when you're thinking of it in terms of $400 a night, but it's still like, wow, that's % off on my stay. I'm saving money technically that I wouldn't be spending somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a great point. I want to talk about rate here in a minute. I want to hone in on something else you said there. And we do a lot of work with Historic Hotels of America, but what I love working with Historic Hotels of America, and we work with many historical properties that aren't HHA members as well, but those properties have figured out a way to celebrate their history, but do that in a way that tells a story, as opposed to being old. There's a big difference between being old and being historic. And a lot of it wraps around brand. So if you have that asset, if you have history, tell that story. Make that part of your brand. We're actually working on a property downtown Charleston right now that has an unbelievable historic story that we're excited to help bring to the world through the marketing and the website we're going to be doing for them. But tell that, celebrate that, but don't let that turn into old. Because old, dingy, not clean, a lot of those things come to mind when we think of old. When we think of historic, that's something we get excited about. And I love traveling and staying at historic properties and many HHA members. Actually, my wife and I just got back from one a few weeks ago. But really focus on that. And the difference is branding, storytelling, and the investment you make in your property. So let's talk a little bit about rate. So that's one of the questions we got a lot from our registrants. How sensitive are you to rate with a property? As you're thinking about this, think about other purchases that you make, like normal everyday purchases. So where are you sensitive with rate? Where are you not sensitive with rate? As it relates to everyday purchases, and then how is that behavior different when you're planning travel? Or is it different?
I think it's all, at least for me, it's value based. So and I'm always comparing things in my head. So like if I'm looking at a vacation rental or a small hotel, and I see the picture and it's like, okay, this is $500 a night. In my mind, I'm comparing, okay, well, like a Ritz-Carlton is X much, and so is this 10% nicer or 10% whatever? So I'm always comparing it. So I think it's the comparative value, at least for me, just because, like I said, if you're going to spend the money, you might as well get the most for it. And it doesn't always mean cheap. It could be really expensive. And we've stayed in really expensive hotels, and there are expensive hotels that are worth the money and that you're really getting that experience. So I don't think it's always a cheap factor. I think it's a value, like what we're giving you for all that money that you're going to pay us.
Yeah, it's definitely value. I mean, I feel like with every purchase we make, it's like our value options. And it's not necessarily cheap, it's just like the value I'm getting. So if I like book with somebody, I'm either getting just what am I getting with you to book with you? And that's part of like convincing me too. Right? Yeah.
Ben, you talked about a $400 a night hotel that's on your radar.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that. Like, what's your expectation? Why a $400 a night hotel when I'm sure you could choose the Motel 8 for 69 bucks?
Well, I've never stayed in a Motel 8. No.
Sorry for slamming the Motel 8.
No. No, I think it's just one thing that caught my attention was that they did give that % off. Like, sure, it doesn't make a difference, but like they're still giving me money off, and their location was prime for where it is. Their rooms were incredible because they were renovated historic rooms. So I'm looking at the value I'm getting from where I'm staying, but also it's like, is it gonna be awesome if I took a picture to show somebody about it? I mean, I know that sounds so cheesy and so millennial and so basic or whatever you want to say. But like, if I can't take a good photo of the place I'm going, it's not the not point of going, but it's kind of a driving factor. Like, is this place really awesome enough for me to be like, wow, I can picture myself here. I want to take pictures here. I want to do that.
So
add that visual.
And we want to
aspect.
like brag about our experiences,
exactly.
like to our friends.
Yeah, it's like, look where I stayed.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So how many likes will my photo get is proportional, and I'm not trying to make a joke, but like how many likes is this photo going to get has a bearing on what we're willing to spend on rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, because eventually the picture you take is the experience you're living. So,
Exactly.
you know, in the end, like, it's your money and it's your time. And I'm like that. I'm like, I don't have any problem kind of like, you know, upgrading my expectations and, you know, paying more if I find a place that I'm sure will provide the experience that I want. You know, because we don't have time to just go to a place that we're unsure of.
Yeah.
Like, I really just don't have time for this. So I'm going to spend more time researching, and even if it's a little more expensive, like, I will just make sacrifice on my daily life. Like, I will probably eat pasta for a week, but I will go to a very cool trip with a great, you know, place to stay. So that's actually, it's all about priorities. And I know for me, like, experience is priority. So, yeah.
So
My
I'll eat
money will
ramen
follow.
noodle for a week so that I can spend $400 a night on a hotel.
Exactly.
That's a huge insight. I mean, as we're talking about travel and we talk about how a generation prioritizes travel and prioritizes spending, that statement's probably quotable. We probably need to create a meme with that.
Yeah.
I think it's something too when you're traveling and like you're putting up that picture, for example, and you're saying where you are, and you say you're at a Marriott, you're like, okay, I can go to that like down the street, like, or somewhere nicer. But if you're staying at a unique property, like one of our customers, like tagging them in that photo or putting them somewhere, like it shows that you've went out of the way to make your experience better. And people see that and like, oh, why would I want to go to a big chain hotel when I can go to somewhere the same price or a little bit more that is just so unique and it's so inspiring to look at and hear their story and everything.
Yeah, and let me help connect the dots for a few people here. So a few years ago, Time Magazine, I believe it was, their person of the year was me. It was the me generation, the selfie, and their person of the year was me, and me has started creating all of this content, right? And that was the cover of Time Magazine, their person of the year. But this is the first generation. I say this is the first generation. Many of you guys know I'm actually in this generation, so I'm just sitting on the other side for a few minutes. But a millennial myself, so I fall guilty to many of these things. But it's the first generation that, like, as a generation, has had their brand. Like, it's not their brand as a company, their brand as a job. Their brand is them. And when they're managing social media and when they're taking all their selfies and when they're doing all the things and they're doing what they've talked to you guys about doing today, they are making a personal brand statement. So the things that we often, as outsiders, look in and say are shallow, if you look at it as the brand of me, it all starts to make sense. And as you think about that within your own business, it's about how do you set that up for somebody? Like, how do you allow the brand of me become real at your property, become real at your destination? And instead of making fun of that selfie or that brand of me, leveraging that and figuring out how to do that well within your property and create on-property assets or create experiences or whatever it is that encourages people to take that experience to the next level and interact with your brand as a part of that. So I think that's a huge takeaway, huge hopeful connection for you guys as we talk about what's sometimes referred to as the selfie generation, and Time Magazine years ago with their me being the person of the year. Like, it has become very internal focused. And there's a lot of psychology behind it. I was actually just watching a documentary. I love consumer behavior about the psychology behind the selfie. And really understanding what's going on there and why people do the things they do and why travel is growing at the pace it is and why a lot of other things are growing, because people are in search of that profile picture that's going to get them a ton of likes. And that releases like dopamine in our brain that we feel like we're a part of something and we feel valued by our community when our content's getting a ton of likes, which is why your content becomes important. And how do you help millennials create their own content that positions your brand? So lots to unpack there. We're out of time on that one to dive any deeper. But as we think about a parting thought, if you could each kind of take a minute or 30 seconds maybe and give our viewers a parting thought today. If you were going to sit down with them and say, hey, here's what you need to do to reach our generation, what would your answer to that question be? And I'm going to talk a little bit more to give you some time to think about the question. But what would your answer to that question be? What would your advice be to the people watching today about how to reach your generation? It can be anything in the world, from how to have a great website to what amenities they need to have. Anything in the world you want your answer to be. But what advice would you give them to better reach your generation, our generation? Caroline, we're going to start down there with you, and we'll just work our way down the couch. If we can give you about 30 seconds to and if you'll just kind of look at our audience and address them directly and say, here's my advice for you. And if Caroline's not ready, anybody can jump in. But
no, as you were talking, this it kept popping up in my mind. So I think my advice would be give us the freedom to choose you. Just really show us bullet points why we should choose you without overdoing this. So without actually trying to please the idea of us, but just, owning who you are while giving a great, easy, simple experience and letting us choose you for that.
Yes, I totally agree with her. The two things that I'm thinking in my mind is photography and making sure that you're telling us your value on why throughout your website of why we need to book with you. So if it's add-on packages, honestly I love add-on packages because it makes life easier and makes my experience better, or it's just a welcome gift or whatever it is that makes you guys unique. Tell us that and communicate that through your website, through your marketing somehow. But yeah.
I think to piggyback off that, I think the reason we travel is to go have cool experiences. So when I go to a website, got about 2 minutes. I have a pretty short attention span, but you got 2 minutes to show me how cool it would be to go to this particular destination and stay at this particular place and why that would enhance my experience of going to place X. I think that's the biggest thing. If you just show me how cool it is to be there and how neat of an experience that would be, that's the overall decision maker, I think, for me.
Yeah.
I think that's piggyback, same thing. Just one, showing me what you have to offer and why you're different. What is going to be the deciding factor is going to be how different you are and what unique feature you have to offer me over something else. And that great picture, even the front picture being of your inn or your area of your vacation rental, giving me the straight up reason why I should be there is a picture of me picturing myself there. And I know that might be a little weird, but it sounds a little weird, but if I can see myself there, I'm gonna go there. And even after I book, just getting a phone call is sometimes really nice, even if it goes to voicemail and I don't listen to it. If I don't answer the phone, I would still like to know, something personal, something personal after I book that makes me feel oh wow, they actually took the time to call me and make sure my money went through.
That's super true. Oh my god, that's such a good point. I love feeling special, and I love when hotels make me feel special, or anything. There's a famous restaurant in Charleston Halls, and after you eat there, they always send you a thank you note. And the first time I got it, I was so blown away that I was I want to go back. I just want the thank you note. So whatever it is to make us feel valued, I think is super important too. When we're on property or even after or before, however, just that whole experience.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thanks to our panel. You guys have been amazing. This has been a lot of fun. It's the first time we've done anything like this. Hopefully we'll do some things like this in the future. Obviously very different, but excited to introduce you guys to them, some of our good friends, meeting some of my other good friends that follow our webinar series. So thank you guys as well for joining us today. One quick opportunity we're going to make available to you. You guys know, if you've been with us before, we always try to help you extend your learning and say, okay, well, how do I take what I learned today, the tons of ideas our panel has shared, and make that real for my destination, for my property, for my business. So one of the things we're going to do, the panel doesn't even know this yet, you guys will get help, but we're going to make our panel available to do a millennial marketing review of your business. So we're going to we've created a review, and we're going to basically go through our checklist, which is driven by many of the things they've talked about today. We've worked with our millennial staff to do that. We're going to create that checklist. We'll analyze your business and give you honest, candid feedback on how are you performing at reaching this generation, evaluated by this generation. So we will make that available for you. We're going to launch a poll on your screen right now. If you want that if you want to take advantage of that free opportunity, just click yes on the poll, and we'll follow up to get in touch with you to schedule that review, go over that with you, share some thoughts, share some ideas on next steps you can take with your website, your marketing, your branding, everything we've talked about today to reach millennials. So simply click yes on the poll that's on your screen right now. If you don't want to take advantage of that, no big deal. We won't bother you. They said they don't want to be on the phone, so they won't call you. Just check no. We don't care which you check. But if you can vote on the poll, it helps us keep people engaged and helps us know what's going on. And our software actually pushes us to get 70% of people to actually vote before it'll let us move past it. So you haven't voted, click no, click yes. We don't care. They've told you that. But we do want to help you guys grow your business. So that's a totally free opportunity. Simply click yes or no, and we'll get that millennial marketing review by our panel and their friends that work at Q4Launch done and available to you. With that, we're going to spend a few minutes answering questions and answers now. So drop those in the question panel as well. We'll go ahead and answer your questions for you guys. And look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks, everybody. Look for our next webinar on our upcoming marketing webinars page on our site. Like us on Facebook. Like their profiles. Make sure to like their selfies so that they feel good about themselves and they'll come visit you guys' properties. But hey, it's been a lot of fun today. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Awesome. That's it.
Nice.
We didn't have
Easy
to
enough.
edit.
It's a
That's
wrap.
great.